Welcome to News and Brews with the Times, where we spill the tea on what's happening in Hall County, Georgia. It's May 19th, 2025. We've got news on a donut place, a new Indian grocery store, a new law requiring inclusive playgrounds, and a fascinating local murder trial. Good morning. I'm Stacy Smith.
And I'm Shannon Casas. We'll also be introducing you a little bit later to Danny MacArthur, the newest reporter to our news team here at the Times. Grab your favorite brew and take a sip as we guide you through what's been happening in Hall County. You can also find all of these stories online at the link in our bio.
In the south end of the county, Donut World has opened its second location ever. With the brand launching in Winder, they've chosen to bring their sweetness to Hall County and are open for business.
So where are they located?
So it's over off Lanier Islands Parkway on exit 8.
Okay, so way down there in South Hall.
Yeah, it's really close to the line, but if you know where Barrett's Baked Goods is, it's right next to there in that same shopping complex.
So what kind of donuts do they have?
Well, they have amazing looking donuts. They have, pastries, yeast donuts, quote unquote fancy donuts, which has like maple bacon glaze, that kind of thing. But they also have different things. They have sandwiches, burrito bowls, tortas, Thai tea, boba. I mean, the list goes on and on.
That's a real fusion there.
Yeah, definitely a broad mix of offerings, but something that looks amazing. If you look at their Facebook, I'm looking forward to trying them out.
So yeah, that looks like a local place, and everybody always wants a Krispy Kreme, but
I know. This is, I think, going to be close to it.
Okay.
We'll see. I'll let you know after I go. But yeah, they opened last month, so go check it out.
UNG's Faculty Senate passed these resolutions last week, accusing school leaders there of violating academic freedom by complying with President Trump's crackdown on DEI.
Wow, that's some big news. What exactly is a Faculty Senate?
It's basically an advisory group that works with the administration and president at the university on policy changes.
Okay, and so you said that they're accusing school leaders of violating academic freedoms. What do they mean by that? Do we have some examples?
Yeah, so the article talks about a couple of specific examples, one being a push to rename the Gender Studies Council and the Gender Studies minor, and then another being looking at optional other textbooks also related to gender.
Okay, and we have two of the resolutions that were passed. The first one, I think, talks about demanding transparency from the administration. And then the second one is, it mentions Kennesaw State. Can you tell us a little more about those?
Yeah, so the one with Kennesaw State, it talks about forming a mutual defense compact, which basically means that they would work together with Kennesaw to try to fight any push that they feel like is affecting their academic freedom. That might look like helping each other with legal fees, that kind of thing. And both of these resolutions are available with the article online, so there are links at the bottom that you can read them for yourself.
It's very legalese language.
It is. Yeah, it's a pretty complicated topic, but it's definitely big news for them to pass something like this.
So what do they actually mean? Like, what's the impact of these resolutions?
So this is an advisory group. They can't necessarily enforce anything here. So it is somewhat symbolic. But like I said, for a university in the South to be doing this is kind of a big deal. You see it, we've definitely seen Harvard pushing back. And one of the professors we spoke with talked about some other areas of the country that are pushing back. But for a university in Gainesville to be doing that, it's different. And of course, not everybody may agree with that, but it's definitely a big topic right now to see how they're going to handle this.
Southeast Asian flavors are expanding in Hall County. A new Indian and Pakistani grocery store opened last week in downtown Gainesville.
That's cool. So that's our first Indian grocery store?
Yes, it is. And it's owned by the same people who opened our first Indian restaurant sizzling spices.
Yeah, that was definitely a big addition to the dining scene here.
Definitely. Yeah, they offer authentic spices, fresh halal meat, vegetables, snacks. Really just a place where you can go. You don't have to travel, 2 hours, a ridiculous amount to get authentic Indian food and spices.
A man was on trial last week on murder charges. He's actually seen in multiple videos shooting the victim just outside his home. So the big question here is, what was his intent? Is it self-defense? That's what the jury is tasked with deciding.
Yeah, so what actually happened that night, or allegedly happened that night?
Yeah, so he lived with the victim and the victim's girlfriend, and there was apparently some kind of fight between the victim and his girlfriend, and the victim was thrown out of the house. He came back later to get his things. They may have been actually outside. The suspect was kind of talking with him, telling him to go away, go get his things. They're over there. And then he shot him.
Oh my gosh. And this was like, I know in past cases where self-defense is a question, especially on somebody's property, I don't know if it's common for them to know the victim so well. I mean, usually it's like a stranger or somebody unexpected, but this is unique in that it's somebody that he knew, somebody that was living with him. So that a lot of interesting dynamics to this case.
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure how unique that is, but it does seem like this wasn't like he was surprised and just shot. Like he knew who it was.
Right. And I think that's the surprising part to me is It's definitely a little unique situation. The jury seems like they're going to have some intense deliberations.
Yeah. So at the time of this recording, they may actually be having those intense deliberations right now. So you can go to the website to find out the verdict. We should have that by the time you are listening.
Inclusive playgrounds will now be required at any school built after 2027, according to a new law just signed by the governor.
That's pretty exciting.
Yeah, Caroline Filchek runs Hope for Hall, a local nonprofit, and she's advocated for inclusive playgrounds. She actually brought the idea to Rep. Matt Dubnik, and he co-sponsored the legislation that Kemp passed.
So what is that really going to mean? What is an inclusive playground?
In the truest sense of the word, it means a lot of things. It's inclusive for mobility issues, learning disabilities, physical restrictions, and it's really just, it thinks about all of these different possible roadblocks for children when they're playing, and not only makes the playground equipment and access more accessible, like ramps and having toys low to the ground. It even goes as far as to think about like the caretakers and if they are going to be needing to join the children in the play to make it safe. And it just really includes everybody.
Yeah, that's great, because that's got to be really frustrating as a parent to have your kid excluded by just the physical nature of a playground, you know.
Right.
You've got enough things to worry about as a parent with how your kids are getting along on the playground.
Right. I can imagine. And, there's so many just natural impediments that you don't even or may not even think about. Like, for example, in a wheelchair, not being able to get to any part of the playground.
So we have a couple already, right?
Yeah, we do. There's currently one at Walker Mountain and the Deal Elementary School. And we have a couple more planned at Lyman Hall and the new Everwood Elementary. So it seems like Hall County is kind of already on board for, working towards all schools being inclusive for all children, which is fantastic.
Yeah, we're leading the way. Now we'd like to introduce you to the newest member of our news team, Danny MacArthur, who will be reporting on local government.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for joining us. So what can you tell us about your ties to the community?
So I am originally from South Georgia. I'm from a small town called McRae, Georgia. But my wife grew up around the area, and her family lives in Flowery Branch. So we wanted to get back to Georgia, and we moved here.
So where were you before Flowery Branch?
I started out in Tupelo, Mississippi. I was there for 5 years, and then I moved down to Jackson, Mississippi for a year.
So how do you like Flowery Branch so far?
It's really nice. I like the shopping. Like, coming from a small town, pretty much anything is bigger and more exciting than where I'm from.
Really? Than Flowery
Yeah.
Branch? Like it's smaller than Flowery Branch?
Oh, absolutely smaller than Flowery Branch.
That's crazy. I know
Yeah.
we've got that main downtown shopping area. I say that with quotes. But we do have the essentials. You know, you've got the Target, TJ Maxx, Bath and Body Works, everything I need on a regular basis.
Yeah, I mean, you're pretty close to the whole Mall of Georgia area down there too.
Yeah, just a
So-
quick drive, 20 minutes or so, less.
Yeah, I do like to go shopping and exploring.
Yeah, it's a growing area. So in the areas, I guess McRae'sville probably not growing a lot. McRae, sorry.
It was okay. Yeah. No, not really. It's a small town. I think I don't know what the demographics are off the top of my head. So, but it's definitely significantly smaller than a place like Gainesville.
Yeah, so I imagine this will be different. Like, I've been in this community and grew up in Gwinnett, and like it's just always growing and growing and growing.
Mhm.
So I imagine that's different.
Yeah, I'm kind of looking forward to that part of it, though. Like, just the idea of covering this community that is growing and is not just staying stagnant in like the same way it's always been.
Gotcha. Yeah, it's definitely like a big issue. You know, Jeff Gill covers growth and development for us, but that intersects a lot with government. Obviously, a lot of the rezonings and stuff will go through our commission, our planning commission, and board of commissioners and council. So there's a lot of like tension in the community as it grows. How do we hold on to our identity, but also grow and have, you know, our new restaurants and all the other new things? You know, every time we write about like a subdivision or townhomes or whatever, there's pushback. So it's this constant back and forth.
Yeah, it is interesting to think about, I guess, how people are impacted. That's what I'm interested in with being a government reporter, is like, how does the government impact people? Like, how does it apply to people's day-to-day lives? And a lot of it is like you're saying, like this growth, like people want to think, how is this going to impact my neighborhood? How is this going to impact like my way of living?
Yeah. So what did you cover before you came here?
So I started out, I started out as a breaking news and trending reporter. But in Tupelo, Mississippi, there's only so much breaking news. So I quickly filled my time doing other things, and I gravitated more towards community news, and just like, who are the people working to change their community and impact their community. And so I became a community reporter, and I did that for about 3 years. And then I was working with the Gulf States Newsroom, which is a regional newsroom. It's a collab between NPR and radio stations in Alabama, Mississippi, and Louisiana. And I covered how the environment impacts people there.
Okay, so you've got that impact work already under your belt. So how will that segue into your government reporting? How do you think that will help you in the new role?
I think it'll help me to think about, how does policy impact people? Like, think of it less as like just numbers and facts and figures, and more like that human impact.
Yeah, like connecting it to the audience, something that we don't really talk about on the podcast, but it's something that is a big focus of the audience team here. So how can we make the news relatable to everybody that it's going to impact?
Yeah, I know one thing for me, and my background is editorial too, so that informs a lot of, you know, how I come at things. But you can have a headline that says the Board of Commissioners voted to XYZ. And I always, even when I was an editorial, wanted to turn that around and say, you know, you will see a bigger tax bill or whatever, rather than focusing on the government action, focus directly on the impact to the person from the get-go. And that helps people kind of immediately pay attention and draws them in. But there's a lot of environmental impacts that do come up in government and have. Like, we recently had a story about a potential landfill expansion, which I think the community was really worked up about. And, I think Ben Anderson did that piece. And then, we've written a lot about water quality here as well in past years, with Lake Lanier being so central to our area. Those are just a couple of big ones. And that government tends, to have a big role there.
Yeah, I learned a lot being an environmental reporter. Is like, people think like it's just like a black and white issue, but it pretty much impacts like every aspect of your life in some way. Like even down to like when there was like heat waves, like, okay, if you're in a place where you don't have air conditioning, that's like a big issue for your health. And so like even like in smaller places, like the environment is a big issue. So I'm not surprised it came up and continues to come up.
Yes, it does. And I know the heat tends to come up. It's been years ago, but I think we used to cover a program where the government would provide fans to residents who needed that. So it's always an issue. So what drew you to journalism originally?
Well, I've always liked writing. Like, I've always been a writer. But in, I think, 7th grade, I had like a class project in my gifted class where we were to do an assignment on like a family member. And I remember going like all out with it. Like, I interviewed my dad. I learned like all this stuff about my dad I didn't know before. Like, I found out he had a twin brother that died when he was younger. I found out like some of his wild child stories. And it was a lot of fun to do that. And I realized that I really liked talking to people and telling people stories. And so I decided I wanted to go into journalism. And when I decided I wanted to go to journalism, I pretty much quickly decided I wanted to go to the University of Georgia because it has one of the, in my opinion, best journalism schools around.
Yeah, I think we've got at least a couple of other grads from UGA. But yeah, that's cool. Like I know we've had interns here before who were like from the community, but then once they start plugging in with a newspaper and start asking questions and like seeing what all we do, they learn so much more about what's going on just from thinking about it and asking questions that they wouldn't have otherwise. So that's like, curiosity is key for a journalist, I think.
Yeah. And I also got really drawn to local journalism, especially. I think it's very important for people to have like those local people to like tell them about what's happening in their community and why that's important. And a lot of that came from doing an internship. Like during my time at UGA, I did an internship with the Brunswick News down in Brunswick, Georgia.
Yeah.
And it was just there, like, I was just doing, like, smaller stories here and there. And then I helped put together, like, a special section for, like, their hurricane season, because obviously hurricanes are a big thing down there. But I just realized how, like, important, like, local papers are for people, especially, like, now when you have so many places that are losing their local news outlets. It's just really important to, like, protect the ones we do have.
Yeah, definitely. Well, that is a good segue. I'll briefly talk about our Hall Journalism Fund. This is something that the paper recently started to expand our news team and to do even more of some of that important work. So we'll put a link in our show notes for anybody interested in donating to that. We'll be talking more about that on the podcast another time. But yeah, thanks, Jenny, for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks so much for joining us. It's a pleasure to have you here.
All right, thanks for having me.
So you can learn more about any of the stories we've talked about today at the link in our show notes. And if you have a news tip or question, you can email us at podcastadmin@gainesvilletimes.com. And join us again next week.